Good morning. Day 12. Honey Advent, day 12. Now, I'll just wait for a few people to get here. If you read my newsletter yesterday, I hope you enjoyed it. I was sharing about how much I've learned over the last couple of weeks. You know, I think every now and again we go through these phases where we just have another sort of insight. Good morning, good morning, good morning, bees. So gamble gig. Hello. So you beekeeper, give me a comment while we wait for some other people to arrive and let me find out who you are. I'm going to taste an amazing honey today. This is a Turkish honey. And as I've been reading up more about it and tasting it, I'm just really, really appreciating the true value of this honey. It is incredible. So I am a bit later this morning. I find in the winter, I'm busy, I'm up early, but there seems to be lots of things to do. And I'm trying to catch up with things at home before I come into work. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to start. Oh, just a casual bee lover. Thank you. Well, we all love the bees and we need to love the bees and we need to appreciate them. So today, my honey is from Turkey and the company is called Honey Leaves. And I met them through through LinkedIn. And I'm in a few honey groups, with honey producers there. And I was just, morning Mick, morning. So I'd met this chap through LinkedIn. And then when I was at Apamondia in Turkey, I got a message through LinkedIn asking where I was and could we meet up. And so the chap from this company, who doesn't speak any English and I don't speak any Turkish, he had a friend who then called me and through WhatsApp and said, look, he's here, can you meet up? Now, he wasn't allowed into the event because he had honey with him. And what he wanted to do was give me a jar of honey. But he didn't just give me a jar. He gave me this, this pot, which was a bit snug, so I took it off earlier. He gave me these 2 jars plus an amazing big circular tin of honeycomb, which I tasted live with him. So you might have seen it if you go back through my feed and you look back into the end of August when I was at Apamondia, you'll see me chatting to him, although it was through a translator. So this is really, really interesting honey. Oh, good morning, Jane. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the end of this week. So this honey comes from Turkey. Now, Turkey is the second biggest producer of honey in the world. I mean, it's a large country. There's a lot of bees and a lot of mountains and a lot of different areas. And we had a week in Gökçeada where there was mainly thyme and pine tree honey. So honeydew honeys, which are dark and really rich. So Turkey is known for its honey. They have thousands of years worth of experience of eating honey. Now, this honey comes from the south of Turkey. And what's really interesting is that it's from a high altitude. So when you have bees at a higher altitude, you've obviously got cleaner air. But what makes this really special is this family have been beekeeping for several generations. And it is high altitude. It's in these meadows, so there's lots of different flowers. But there's also acacia. Now, acacia is normally thought of or categorized as a very clear runny honey that doesn't set. But look at the colour of this, really, really dark. And what I found out from training in Bologna is there's actually 2 types of acacia. There's a false acacia, which is the acacia that we see everywhere, and that's the acacia honey that you see that's really clear and runny. Then there's a true acacia tree, which you get in Africa and also in parts of the Middle East, and that produces a darker honey. So what they've done is this honey has been creamed, so it's just been whisked up, and this honey hasn't, but it's the same honey. And so I'm going to taste them both. And I'm just learning so much more. Now, I knew that this beekeeper was organic, and to have an understanding, we think, oh, organic, it means there's no chemicals in it. How could you possibly have any chemicals in honey? Now, because bees collect the nectar from flowers, if the flowers have been sprayed or in an environment where there are chemicals, then that's going to come through in the honey. Then add to that, a huge proportion of beekeepers around the world use chemicals inside the hive. So they use miticides to protect and treat for disease, but then there can also be antibiotics. And what has come out from testing since Apimondia in Montreal is that also beekeepers are feeding their bees, not leaving honey for the bees to eat, but adding food. Now that could be sugar, or it could be mixtures where people are mixing up soy, all kinds of different products, and they're feeding the bees that. Now, if it's not an organic sugar, or if it's not an organic soy, you're going to get chemicals from those plants also coming through in the honey. And so this is why we have such a high issue of adulteration. And honey can be classified as adulterated either where it's not real honey, you know, it's been diluted with sugar anyway, or the way that the beekeepers actually produce the honey. And this is a real problem. And when I first started beekeeping and I started saying, we can't feed the bees sugar, and no, I don't want to use chemicals inside the hive, it really was heretic. And there is this belief that we have to feed them sugar and we have to put chemicals inside the hive. But we don't. You know, if you feed the bees their own honey, yes, you harvest less honey, but the bees are more healthy. And therefore, they're not so likely to get sick and they're needing to have any kind of chemicals. So we don't have to use chemicals inside a hive, and we don't have to use sugar to feed our bees. They make honey and they need to feed honey. So what makes this honey? So it comes from Turkey. Morning, Nikki. Thank you for joining me. So this is honey I was given in Turkey by an amazing family of beekeepers, and it is truly organic honey. If you see a British honey and it's labelled organic, it cannot be, because bees fly in 5 miles around their hive, and there is not an area in Britain where the bees would not be exposed to either a chemical agriculture or toxic fumes in the air. So what makes this honey so amazing? It's from southern Turkey, it's from high altitude, but what it also means is that you cannot get traffic up to these meadows, these high plateaus where there's true acacia flowering. There's also about 400 other different species of plants. Many of them are harvested for pharmaceutical companies because they are so pure. So you're high in the mountains, you've got no air pollution, you've got no traffic, no exhaust fumes, because the only way to get the beehives up to this area is by animals. It's like horse and cart or donkeys. That's how they get the beehives up there. Then the beehives, they only use stainless steel rivets in making the hives. The bees make all their own wax comb, so there's no foundation, which is like a industrial manufactured beeswax sheet that you can put inside a hive. So beekeepers can send in their wax, it gets melted down, then you get it back as sheets. Again, I don't like to use foundation because you don't know what's in it. You know, there's pathogens that can come from other people's beehives, or chemical residues in other people's beehives that's going to come through into your honey. So these beekeepers, they don't feed their bees sugar, they don't use any chemicals, and they're in a pristine environment where there is no pollution in the air. I mean, wow, which is why I haven't eaten lots of it, because it's so precious. So, as I mentioned, I've got two. They are actually the same honey, but this one is still liquid, it's a runny honey, and this one has been creamed. So the creaming, what happens is if you stir up a honey enough when you've harvested it, it will actually cream. It will be sort of semi-set, and it stabilizes it, so it stays semi-set. And some people like a creamed honey, some people like a runny honey. So by doing this, it's a way of, you know, satisfying both people's needs. But the qualities of the honey change because you've got crystals that are forming, sugar crystals. Oh gosh, do you know what? I can't get the lid off now. Oh, there we go. So sugar crystals have actually formed around the pollen particles, and that's what makes it set. So, I was going to say, have a sniff of that. Have a sniff. Beautiful, rich, dark honey. So this is true acacia. Oh, now look at the consistency. Wow. Look at that. Amazing. Oh, morning. Right. So this is a true acacia honey from Turkey, from these pristine mountains. If you've just joined, you've got to watch the beginning so you know more about where this honey comes from. And the flavour, because there's absolutely, oh gosh, it's so smooth. There's no pollution in this area. And actually this family company have won an international award for the quality of their honey. You know, it's been the best honey in the Middle East. So it's really smooth. It's a slight toffee flavour. Oh, but it is, do you know, I haven't had one for ages, but you know the Werther's toffees, it's got that kind of flavour. It's just, that is a 10 out of 10 honey. And interestingly, I tasted it in the summer with Mervyn, who's from Field Honey, and they're very experienced British beekeepers, and we tasted a whole load of different honeys from Turkey when I came back, and he actually said this one was astonishing. Ooh, if I could get the lid off this, gosh. Ah, there we go. So now this is the same honey but creamed. So there we go, you can see. And they don't filter this, so it's raw honey, it's just come from the hive. Now when you filter a honey, you're removing some of the pollen particles. So industrially produced honey will be fine filtered because then it's easier to keep the honey in a runny state. But you are affecting, you know, a lot of the goodness that comes in the honey. I mean, you want to have pollen in your honey, particularly if you're thinking of having honey for hay fever. Right. Now it's quite cold in my my workshop here, so that is having an impact. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to have a big spoonful. Crikey, that's more honey than I normally eat in a day. But, But, oh, right, now this one, although it's the same honey, as it's crystallized, the flavors have changed. And this has, oh, it's a mixture of fruit, it's citrus, maybe a bit of lemon peel. Oh, this is truly amazing honey. So, gosh, so from this pristine environment, this honey, the amount of floral variety. Now there's still, now as it dissolves in my mouth, I'm getting the toffee that I got from the more liquid version. But when it's crystallized, because you've got sugar crystals all around the pollen particles, you're perhaps tasting the pollen. So it's much more floral, sweeter. I can actually feel it in my teeth. Amazing. So where the honey comes from is really, really important. So when you hear buy local honey, you know, it's best. But if your local honey is made from bees that are foraging, you know, in an environment where there's a lot of toxic fumes in the air, where there's a lot of toxic chemicals used inside the hive, where the bees have been fed too much sugar, where the bees have had chemicals used inside the hive, where the foraging, you know, around the hive is all sprayed, it's not going to be any good for you. So we have to stop looking, it's so complex, you know, we sort of say, oh, the best thing for the environment or to be carbon neutral or whatever is we have to buy local. But if our local area is messed up, then it's not going to be any good for you. If you're looking for the purest, finest honey, you've got to get it from the purest, finest environments. And so this honey is going to be more expensive. It has travelled across the world. However, when you buy this honey, the money goes to a small family who've just got 500 hives. That's all they've got, 500 hives. And when you buy their honey, it keeps them in business and it protects this pristine environment. It stops roads building up there. It stops people putting houses up there. It saves the environment. It saves this pristine place. And this is true medicinal honey because it's come from such a pure environment. And that's what we have to think. If you're taking honey as a medicine, where your honey has come from is the most important thing. So, although Manuka honey is thought of as the most medicinal honey, it was only the first honey to be tested to be proven to be medicinal. And what the majority of the Manuka honey that is produced actually comes from is a pristine wild environment. You know, it grows wild. The Manuka flower grows wild, so it is wild. So you're going to get this pristine honey. But if the honey comes from a toxic environment, whether it be the beehives or what the bees are foraging from, that's going to come through in the honey. So if you're truly looking for medicinal honey, it doesn't have to be a particular plant, but it's the place and the production that really have the impact. So a bit of a rant for a Monday morning. There's a lot to understand about honey, and it's not just about being runny or set. You know, there is so much about honey production, and when somebody produces honey to a really, really high quality, boy, can you taste it. It really makes a difference. So I'm going to see if I can find out how I can start buying this in and selling it, because the more I taste it, the more I understand about the company, the more I realise this is one of the world's finest honeys. And if you want a really fine honey, well, I think if there is a really world standard fine honey, then you should be able to get it from me. So here we go, honey leaves. So if you're ever in Turkey and you see this anywhere, you just have to buy it. So you're supporting a wonderful small business, a small family who are doing it right. They're taking care of their bees, really good care of their bees, and they're producing some of the world's finest honeys. So, wow, what a way to start the week. So have a great week. I'm going to meet up. I was talking about Manuka, but all going well, I will actually be meeting up with one of Zealandia, the company Zealandia, who make Manuka honey in New Zealand. So I met Shri earlier on in the year. She came and visited, and now I have Sunil. So hopefully we will see. He's travelling all the way around the UK, and we've got a little window, so hopefully we can get together. And if we can, I will definitely record a little session of honey tasting, and then I will share it with you tomorrow. So have a great day, and really have a look at your honeys and see where they come from. And of course, if you do want fine honeys, all the honeys that are available through my website or from my shop here, they are really, really good honeys. And I'm not just looking at the floral variety or whether it's set or whether it's runny. I'm talking about the beekeepers and the land that the honey comes from. So have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.